It's no secret that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are controversial. Some people say it's a revolution in money that's going to change everything, while others say it's a scam, a Ponzi scheme, it's not backed by anything, or in other words, they don't think it should be valued. Only time will tell, but the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But even if that's the case, why does or even should Bitcoin actually have any value at the real heart of it? That's what I'm going to try and explain today with as much of an objective and pragmatic perspective as possible, so the real core of it. So whether you're a hard skeptic who can't understand why people even care about Bitcoin or a crypto enthusiast, you should find it interesting. And by the way, I'm just going to use Bitcoin and the US dollar for all the examples just to keep things simple. Now, I'm not an economist, and of course all of this is my opinion, but I have been interested in cryptocurrencies for a few years, and I've gone through all the different stages, even making a video called Bitcoin is Dumb in 2016, which didn't really age well. Today, while I don't think Bitcoin is going to take over the world and replace all currencies or anything, I definitely think it at least will hold a unique position of its own in the world, regardless of how important you think that position is. So I do know what it's like to have both perspectives, so don't think I'm just some kind of hardliner for either side in this video. And no, I'm not going to say anything about how much Bitcoin should be worth or whether you should buy any or anything like that. Literally, just why it has value in the first place. Now, before we get into it, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, which I genuinely think you'll find interesting, which is Unstoppable Domains. They don't sell normal domains you're familiar with, but rather blockchain domains such as .crypto domains. But hold on, because I guarantee you these are not what you're thinking. They're not like those other random word top-level domains you can buy for websites or any other domains for that matter. Blockchain domains actually exist for a different purpose on the Ethereum blockchain in the form of an NFT. So you can actually store it in your own Ethereum wallet and you truly own it forever, unlike regular websites where your domain can expire and is managed by some registrar. And here's one cool thing you can do with these blockchain domains. You can actually attach data to your .crypto domain that contains all of your different cryptocurrency wallet addresses. So assuming someone has a wallet that supports them, such as Coinbase Wallet, you can actually just tell them to send the Bitcoin to theojoe.crypto, for example, instead of some random long string for the public address. And yes, I actually did buy theojoe.crypto from Unstoppable Domains before they ever reached out to sponsor. Also, you can host decentralized websites on your blockchain domain. And actually, Unstoppable Domains just announced that Brave browser now supports .crypto domains for visiting those websites. So be sure to check out the link in the description and get your own .crypto domain. You may as well grab one of your own name maybe now and just hold on to it, even if you think there's a chance you'll use it later. And with all that being said, let's continue. Now, I believe if you can't explain something simply, then it's just not a good explanation. So let me put my argument for why Bitcoin has value in the most simplified way possible, and then I'll expand on that greatly. In short, Bitcoin has value mainly because enough people believe it does and trust it, as circular as that may seem, and also because it has certain advantages over other traditional stores of value such as gold and regular currency. A lot of people probably just rolled their eyes because I know that isn't much of an explanation really, but it does sum it up. So now let me give you the full explanation, and then again, I'll also address common arguments I've heard about it. First of all, I want to point out that even if you hate Bitcoin, you think it will collapse to zero or whatever, you must at least agree that it does in fact currently have some literal value at this moment. If you found a piece of paper on the ground with the private key to a wallet with 100 Bitcoins on it, you would obviously be thrilled because you know you can go on any Bitcoin exchange and trade it for millions of dollars. So clearly enough people value Bitcoin to trade other stuff for it. In this case, fiat currency, which is just like government printed money. I know this sounds circular, but from this fact alone, it sort of feeds into itself. And the more people that recognize it has any value at all, the more valuable it becomes. The evidence for this is there is literally billions of dollars in liquidity for Bitcoin, meaning you can sell a crap load of it and there is still enough buyers. Now, I know what some of you might say next, which is, well, I don't care how many people are duped into buying Bitcoin, I mean that Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. This is a very common and honestly reasonable argument, at least on the surface. To respond to it, I'm going to have to take a few different approaches, so I might seem all over the place and it might get a little bit philosophical, but just bear with me. Because I think this idea of intrinsic value is one that really needs to be addressed well. First, I will say that most things that people think has intrinsic value don't, depending on how you look at it. Take gold, for example. Gold is obviously valuable. I think everyone agrees with that. Again, I'd give the example of anyone on Earth's reaction to finding a bar of gold on the ground. But if you really think about it, why is that? Warren Buffett put it better than I could when he said, "Gold gets dug up out of the ground in Africa or someplace, then we melt it down, dig another hole, bury it again, and pay people to stand around guarding it. It has no utility. Anyone watching from Mars would be scratching their head." Now, yes, gold does have some industrial purposes, like in electronics, but that doesn't explain why it's so much more value than copper or aluminum, which is also incredibly useful in manufacturing. Well, gold is more scarce, you may say, but I would say scarcity only multiplies existing value, so to speak. If I draw a smiley face on a piece of paper and call it art, it's scarce because there's only one, but it's still worthless because no one wants it. So this is all kind of basically the concept of supply and demand put in other words. Now again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying gold has no value. In fact, it's one of the most valuable things on the planet. And it might sound like I'm going off topic here, but I'm not. Think about this. When the Europeans went to the New World in the 1400s, they found that the Aztecs, Mayans, and plenty of other natives also greatly valued gold as a sign of wealth and for trade. The fact that even human societies that developed completely independently still both decided gold is valuable and continue to, I say adds a huge amount of credibility and trust to it as a store of value. One other very quick example are diamonds. Diamonds are not even that rare, but companies purposefully limit how much supply they let out so they're artificially scarce. Look it up, it's true. Now, diamond itself is useful for cutting tools and stuff because it's so hard, but it doesn't need to be a big, shiny, clean diamond to do that. So why are people willing to pay exponentially more for shinier and bigger diamonds, and more for real diamonds than artificial diamonds, which are literally indistinguishable without specialized equipment? All right, so yes, there is a point to all this, which is just to establish that something doesn't have to have intrinsic value to be valuable and even a long-term reliable store of value. The next thing I'll address that I hear a lot of is the idea of Bitcoin not being backed by anything. It might seem like the same thing we just talked about, but not exactly. I think the argument is that because Bitcoin is not, quote, backed by anything, it could simply collapse at any time. And actual currencies like the US dollar are backed by governments, so they derive value from that. Now, this may surprise you, but I actually agree with both of those points. No, Bitcoin is not backed by anything. And yes, fiat money does have value because it is backed by its government, such as being required for taxes and stuff. With that second part, if you're someone who disagrees, think of it this way. Your government requires taxes that must be paid in their currency, and if you don't pay your taxes, you can be punished. If it really came down to it, a bunch of armed men will come to your house and lock you in prison until you pay. So in a way, at the absolute very least, currency issued by a government is sort of backed by people not wanting to go to jail. Oh, and for the people who think that government-backed currency is the be-all, end-all for money, let me point this out. The US dollar is arguably the most valuable fiat currency on the planet, being the world's reserve currency. Let's take a look at the United States Treasury website, treasury.gov, where it talks about the Federal Reserve notes, the technical term for dollars. You can see it written on all US paper money. Now, hold on, wait, what's this? Federal Reserve notes are not redeemable in gold, silver, or any other commodity and receive no backing by anything. What? To be fair, it then says the notes have no value for themselves, but for what they will buy. In another sense, because they are legal tender, Federal Reserve notes are backed by all the goods and services in the economy. I like how backed is in quotes though. All right, anyway, back to the notion that Bitcoin isn't backed by anything though. My response to that is simply, it doesn't matter. The argument that there are certain things that are valuable because they are backed by something doesn't preclude other stuff that isn't also being valuable. I mean, look at any valuable collectibles, rare baseball cards, antique furniture, even Pokemon cards. They're not backed by anything unless you count nostalgia, which I don't really think you can. They're just valuable because people want them and hold on to them and are willing to part with them in exchange for something else they consider equal value, such as some amount of money. Now, of course, not all collectibles remain valuable or stay the same value. Just look at Beanie Babies. But again, just because Beanie Babies became worthless doesn't mean that someone should trash all their rare baseball cards. So let me sum up this part of the reason why Bitcoin is valuable. Enough people already trust it that it is becoming more accepted as a safe store of value. And by safe, I mean it's not going to be worthless or close to it anytime soon. Remember, not everyone has to value it for it to be accepted as valuable. Even Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, who called Bitcoin a fraud in 2017, is now offering a Bitcoin fund for clients. So again, that just kind of adds into the idea that yes, people don't want to buy into risky stuff, but as they see other people accepting it, they may start to accept it themselves. And the more people that do that, overall, the more trustworthy that thing becomes. The fact is, Bitcoin has proven itself as a pretty robust store of value. Whether you think that will last forever or not is beyond the point. It just is. Now let me address really the second part of why Bitcoin is valuable, which is that it does actually have several certain advantages over regular money and other stores of value. I'm not saying it's better in every way and should replace all that. I'm only saying in some ways it is better, but in other ways it may not be. This also addresses the criticism that, sure, even if Bitcoin is valuable, there is still no reason to hold it instead of gold or something else. One difference Bitcoin has compared to every other currency is that it is finite. There will only ever be 21 million that can be mined. In fact, the number of possible Bitcoins will only ever reduce, as some are lost from people losing their private wallet keys. This is very different compared to fiat currency, where the government can just print as much as they want. Therefore, Bitcoin is an excellent hedge against inflation, at least if you believe it'll retain its value. Possibly one of the best to ever exist even. Even with gold, we dig more out of the ground every day with no real limit, and eventually maybe we'll even mine it from asteroids. With Bitcoin, no one can make more, so it is very useful to people who don't trust the government to not print themselves into hyperinflation or something. Maybe you like to imagine that your own country will never experience hyperinflation for whatever reason, you're safe from it. Okay, that's fine. Instead, imagine some other random country around the world at some point starts money printing itself to death. It's happened several times before, will likely happen again, and obviously not where any of you live. Let's say in that country, a lot of people see the writing on the wall and anticipate their money will soon be worthless, and let's assume they're right. Surely you will agree that for very real practical reasons, the citizens will want to exchange their decaying money for something else, whatever they can get their hands on. So foreign currencies, hard assets, gold, silver, and yes, why not Bitcoin? The fact that it can be used for such a purpose, which is an inflation hedge, is just one reason it is additionally valuable. And actually, one may choose to go with Bitcoin instead of gold or another hard asset during such a crisis, because with Bitcoin, all you need to do is remember the seed phrase. If you can make sure to memorize the 24 words for your key and then burn any hard copies, then quite literally the value of your money is stored only in your head. Assuming you didn't go bragging about it all, it can't be confiscated or stolen by the government or anyone else. You can escape out of the country with it easily, whereas gold or silver, you gotta lug it around and then risk it being taken or lost on the way. And by the way, one argument I've seen people make against even gold, let alone Bitcoin, as an inflation hedge is they say something like, if the country collapses, no one's gonna want your gold, they'll want food and water, it'll be worthless. Which is not even the reason why people buy gold as a hedge. It's not for some doomsday scenario where all of Earth is in the Stone Age again. It's for if your particular country or region has some crisis and the money loses a bunch of its value, you can store some of your wealth in gold and exchange it for another currency that didn't collapse later. Same goes for Bitcoin. Now look, I'm literally only talking about why Bitcoin has value, very limited scope here. I can't address every single other argument people have against Bitcoin. Plenty of people have been saying, oh, it's bad for the environment, or it could get hacked by quantum computers, or some country could take over all the mining of it. You could come up with a million reasons why anything is a bad idea. At the end of the day, Bitcoin has value. It just does at this point. You can either deny it and keep complaining or just kind of accept it. That doesn't mean you have to like it or buy any, but you should at least know the reason, or at least the opinion of the reason that I presented today. I would very much like to know you guys' thoughts, whether you agree or disagree. We can talk about that down in the comments. Again, thanks to Unstoppable Domains for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check out the link in the description and get a .crypto domain of your own. Again, it'll be yours forever. Not many things you can say about that you buy. So thanks for watching, guys, and be sure to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the discussion and subscribe for new videos every week. I'll see you in the next one.